Hello, everybody. Welcome to Let's Talk Football. My name is John Halpin alongside Chris Palmer. How are we doing today, my brother?
Doing good, man. Very, very exciting week that we just got past.
Ooh,
Championship football, man. You gotta love it.
We had championship weekend, and it did not disappoint. The stage is set for the Super Bowl. The Cincinnati Bengals and the Los Angeles Rams playing in the Super Bowl.
It hurts.
Ooh, it's painful.
It stings to see
Fuck the
Cincinnati.
Bengals.
It stings hearing about them in the championship, but they are so much fun to watch. It's hard not to enjoy it.
Now we're not going to talk. We're not going to talk about that matchup. We're going to save that for our Super Bowl episode next week, which is going to be absolutely great. So tune in next week to see our Super Bowl episode. But let's talk about the games that happened already, starting with Kansas City and Cincinnati. My God, you called it. What was the momentum shift in that game?
The momentum shift was that halftime play, man, when Eli Apple got the stop on Tyreek Hill at the 1-yard line. Andy Reid decided to become aggressive and not kick a field goal to go into the half, get more points on the board. He decided to try and go for a touchdown, and Eli Apple slapped him in the face. And you and I were talking off air, and yes, I did call it that was the piece of momentum that Cincinnati needed to turn it around. And look what happened. They came back from a 17-point deficit and won.
Yeah.
One play can change the game, and that's what it was. It wasn't even a turnover. It was a defensive stop on a superstar.
Mm-hmm.
So, hats off to Cincy, man. Joe Burrow he's exciting. He is just exciting. There's no other word to say it.
He is one of those quarterbacks where he's just a living highlight reel. There are so many plays where not so much. I wasn't impressed by any throw he made, but him evading some sacks was very impressive. Especially that he has played in the NFL a total of less than 20 games starting. So this is
It's
actually just a little over because it was about halfway last year he got injured.
I think it was like week 4 or week 5 he got hurt with that
7
knee injury.
or so, but
Something like that.
But nevertheless,
wasn't long. But it bodes well for the rest of his career and from here out. His quality of games have been absolutely mesmerizing. I think that generational talent that everyone's been looking for is Joe Burrow. Let me hit you with a stat real quick. No NFL quarterback has ever won the Heisman Trophy, BCS title, or a Super Bowl. Joe Burrow is on pace to do all 3 in 3 years.
which is unbelievable to think about.
Unbelievable. One more. Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase have not lost a playoff game together in college or the pros.
Whew. My God. My God.
So, very impressive. They absolutely deserve everywhere that they are right now when it comes to being in the Super Bowl. They earned it every step of the way.
They had a very respectable season, and as much as I hate the Bengals, I got to tip my cap off to them that, hey, they're the best team in the AFC, and it's kind of hard to say otherwise. But let's move on to the NFC, where the Los Angeles Rams came back from a 10-point deficit in the fourth quarter to win it 20-17. Your thoughts on that game?
I feel like this was, overall, this entire season, regular season, postseason is the year of the comeback. Both of these games were a comeback. Last week, most of the games were comebacks. Throughout the season, there have been comeback upon comeback. It's almost like true to form for this season, I'd say. But Matt Stafford, I'm so happy.
I know. I'm so happy to see
Stafford.
Matt Stafford in it too, and the fact that it's Matt Stafford and Eminem is performing at halftime. This is probably the closest Super Bowl Detroit is ever going to have.
Yes, and wow, that's
you think about it. You
wow,
think about
that's fucked up. But I can't help but agree.
But it's going to, honestly, I like this matchup.
Oh yeah,
I think there's so many great matchups that we're going to get into detail next week about it, but there's so many little matchups of so many players that you just want to see on the field, and there's just stars all over the field, and I guess it's fitting that it's going to be in LA.
Yeah, which again is another historic accolade to this season, that it's going to be the second time in 2 years that a team hosts the Super Bowl.
Consecutive years, back-to-back years, just
Yes.
boom.
And if they win, my God, two times in 2 years a Super Bowl host winning, that's unheard of.
You got to stop it. You'll give the Cowboys some ideas.
Come on now. Joe Burrow has won Cincinnati more playoff games in 15 days than Dak Prescott has done in 6 years.
Which is, again, scary to think about.
15 days.
Unbelievable.
But on the other side, San Francisco, man, they got to do something. Jimmy G is not the answer anymore, and it shows. He played atrocious this playoff run.
I guess it was fitting that Aaron Donald, being the best player on the Rams, was the one sacking Jimmy Garoppolo as he made the twirling interception.
Yeah.
It was very fitting. But I'm interested to see where Jimmy Garoppolo goes in the offseason because you know a team's going to pick him up.
Yeah.
So it's just a matter of where he goes. He could go to Denver. I heard some maybe rumors of Carolina.
There's also
Don't be surprised about Pittsburgh as well. So keep your eye on that this offseason. But man, what a season! What a season it was!
What a season! And I want to start with Tom Brady finally announcing his retirement.
Yep.
We give him a lot of heat on this podcast. That was more so because he was just the villain of the NFL. He was so great, he became the villain. Everybody hated Tom Brady just because of how great he was. All the debates on what happened, cheating, not cheating, the whole nine. The man played on a level that exceeded everybody forever. It's just what it was. He is the greatest of all time. Hats off to an amazing career, Tom Brady, and best of luck in the next chapter, whatever it may be.
I got to say, knowing that Tom Brady retires, you knew this day was going to come, but it's like, damn, did it actually come? Did it actually happen? So it's and it kind of leaves you in a state of shock, and it's honestly was such momentous news that it was like a top headline on the BBC News app that I had. It sent it worldwide,
right?
Saying hey, look, Tom Brady is retired, and then so it's the fact that he had a global impact on the world is just monumental to think about, and because he had such a seismic impact on the game of football itself.
Yeah,
and I don't think we'll ever see another career like Tom Brady again. 10 Super Bowl appearances, 3 MVPs, 7 rings, more than any team. Right. In the NFL. This man alone.
2 separate dynasties on one team.
A 20-year dynasty in New England, which is just unheard of. So, hats off to Tom Brady. What a career. First ballot Hall of Famer. He may be the only one on that ticket.
He might have his own singular ticket.
So, but you know what? Hey, as much as, again, we give him a lot of heat, I got to say thank you, Tom Brady, for all that you've done for the game of football.
And that marks an end of an era, man.
Yep.
All the quarterbacks that we grew up watching are more so gone. The only one left is Aaron Rodgers.
Yep.
Drew Brees is done. Phillip Rivers is done. Both Manning brothers are done. Ben Roethlisberger's done. And now Tom Brady's done.
Yep.
It's an absolute... And now Sean Payton's done.
Yep.
It is an absolute end of an era. Those quarterbacks changed the route of football.
Mm-hmm.
But it's really safe to say that the position of quarterback is in good hands.
Absolutely. There's so many great quarterbacks out there. AFC, NFC, there's so many great ones there. And to just think that Tom Brady leaving, but also him leaving conferences, has changed the whole power dynamic and power structure of the NFL. And we're just in a really persistent state of change throughout the NFL, and it's just exciting to see because there's so many teams just rising to power and becoming great, and it's just impressive to watch. Look at the Rams, look at Cincinnati; those are probably the best teams to think about, how the power has shifted not only AFC and the NFC, and keep an eye on the NFC South this year. There's going to be a big power vacuum within that division itself.
Oh, without a doubt, and I feel like as a whole, with Tom Brady retiring, the entire league just took a breath of fresh air. It's finally, I don't have to play that guy. Everybody has love and respect for Tom Brady, but nobody wants to play him.
No.
You don't want to see him step onto the field because he can and will just be the best player on the field, and he'll make you look like a child. Now that's gone. So now every game you don't have to ever worry about being Brady'd again. You can go into the fourth quarter with a lead and really, as long as you play right, it will not be. We still might lose. You keep that in the back of your head when you play Tom Brady. It's like, who knows if there's enough time or not.
Well, it's funny. You said this is the year of the comeback, and the two teams that are left going into the Super Bowl won these games on comebacks.
Yes,
respectively. So, but not just them, but there's so many quarterbacks that can do it too. But nobody did it better than Brady because he just did it so often to every team.
Well, he's first all time in fourth quarter comeback.
Exactly. So, and he's won six of his Super Bowls on fourth quarter game-winning overtime drives.
Right. So he's done it on the biggest stage of them all. So doing it in the regular season became almost like practice to him.
Exactly.
Practicing for the Super Bowl move.
So thank you, Tom Brady, for all that you've done for football. But we are excited to talk about the next phase of football.
Yeah, and let's start with Washington finally putting out their name. They have confirmed that they will be the Washington Commanders at the beginning of next season.
What are your thoughts on that?
I don't know, man. Personally, I feel like they should have went with the Washington Red Tails to give a little bit of a homage to the Tuskegee Airmen. But, there have been very faint talks about Alabama potentially forming a professional team in the NFL, like when they do an expansion of the league. So they may be keeping that name because that's where the Tuskegee Airmen trained, was in Alabama. But the Commanders, to me, it kind of just sounds like a thrown together name. Like, here, you guys wanted a name, so take one.
Mm-hmm.
The uniforms are okay, though. What do you think?
I kind of like it. You know what it is? It's for Washington, though. I think it's a good name. I do like their uniforms as well. I thought their black uniforms, again, look more like Steelers uniforms. I thought that was like, oh, it's the Washington Steelers. But honestly, I like the name. I like the uniforms. But in all reality, this is just putting makeup on a dead horse. And the dead horse is how the ownership of Washington has really failed it. Under Dan Snyder, it has been absolutely atrocious. No head coach has lasted more than 6 years in Washington under his ownership. And I feel bad because it's like right now they're in a spot where to start fresh is the best thing that they can do because you have Ron Rivera has been building through the draft these past 2 years. You give him another year, give him a quarterback, and he may be able to do something. I think right now they're in a good spot where it's like they really need to trust not only their coaching staff but also their players if they ever want to be successful as a team. And it's just unfortunate that ownership has never trusted the vision of a head coach to lead Washington back to its glory years, which has been a long, long time.
I think it was the 80s when the last time they were like prominent.
Well, their last Super Bowl win was in 91, okay. 92.
They had a good little stint with Donovan McNabb at the end of his career.
Mm-hmm.
I remember that vaguely, but they were never too much to really bet. They were never much of anything growing up. When they had Sean Taylor, of course, their defense was out of this world. Rest in peace, Sean Taylor. Then they had RG3 until he got hurt.
And now he's a Raven.
And now he's a backup on the Ravens. So, but I almost feel like this is a breath of fresh air for them as well.
Mm-hmm.
They can finally shake off whatever they feel they need to shake off when it came to being the Redskins to the football team, and now they're new. It's completely new. You want to start a new slate, you can start with the name and start with the brand. Now you don't have to worry about anything that was any type of shade that was thrown at the Redskins or the Washington football team.
Mm-hmm.
That's not you guys anymore. You guys have a new name, a new slate. So come out new.
Yep.
Come out with something new. Like, I agree with you completely. You have to go into this draft and find a quarterback.
Yes.
And you need to find a quarterback that can play and play now because your team is ready to win. They're ready to win. They need a quarterback. There's a couple of teams in the league that just need a quarterback, and they'll be able to win prominent games. Washington's one of them.
Yeah, they're one of those teams where it's like their division is not that good. But, again, it's constantly in flux. No team has won consecutive divisional titles since I think it's like 2002, 2003 or so. So that division is always in flux. So the Cowboys are good only because they really dominated their own division.
Right.
I think going into this year, we're going to see Philly start to emerge as a contending team because they did make the playoffs in their first year under Nick Sirianni. The Giants are still a tire fire, but the Cowboys, they were flashy, but they're mortal. You can beat them, and Ron Rivera can. The defense failed him this year in every which way.
I agree.
And that's why they didn't really have as much success as they did the year prior, winning their title. It's unfortunate because, again, Ron Rivera is a defensive-oriented coach, so he can win that division. It's just Dallas was just one out every divisional game. So they could start to make a push to start winning their division. From there, if you win it, and if you win it enough times, then you can convince me that you can be a playoff team. But until then, there's a lot of steps for Washington to take to even think about that point.
I agree, and especially with the talent coming up, and like you said, in Philly, I feel like Philly is going to take a big push for that division for years to come because Dak and the Cowboys, they're kind of a sinking ship now. I like them, but they're a sinking ship. They're moving, but they're not moving anywhere fast.
Mm-hmm.
And Philly, they came out this year with a head of steam, and they were the heaviest rushing team in the league.
Yep.
So, and they made a playoff run with Jalen Hurts. Very exciting things to come from Philly. I feel like they're going to make a big push for the division, like Buffalo made a push for theirs.
I could absolutely see it. So that's one thing I'm really looking forward to is seeing how the NFC East, how that what was considered the worst division in football, how that's going to look in the next couple of years, especially next year.
I feel like it's still going to be the quote-unquote weakest division, but
We may see some tough teams emerge.
there will be a shift in the table there.
Oh, yeah.
You know, because when you look at that division on paper, it's always the Cowboys are the strongest team in that division, even though they're pretty weak outside of their own division. Philly's strong outside of their division. So they could very much emerge as the strongest team in their division and really lock that division away.
Yeah.
And take strides away from every other team.
Mm-hmm. Honestly, to me, I would say Philly has been the most impressive team like that to me this year because I want to consider like going into this year, not a lot of people, especially us included, we didn't think much of Philly this year. We thought maybe they'd go like say 4-13 or 5-12 or something like that.
Shit, I had them going winless.
Yeah, and but the fact that they were able to go 9-8, go into the playoffs. I mean, granted, you play against Tom Brady, you're going to lose that game. So, but the fact that they were able to make it under first-year head coach Nick Sirianni and establishing an identity and a culture in Philly, I was very impressed with Nick Sirianni this year, and I want to see if he can keep doing that going forward. And I think Jalen Hurts gives them the best opportunity to win in Philly.
Him and the wide receiver, the name defeats me.
I forget his name.
Oh my God, we'll get back to it.
The Heisman winner.
Yeah,
from last year.
Yes.
On Alabama.
yes.
Oh, Devonta Smith.
Thank you, Devonta Smith.
There we go.
Yeah,
Took us a minute.
it took us a minute there.
Devonta Smith. Yeah.
Devonta Smith. Yeah, them two are definitely the best focal points to have. Young coach Nick Sirianni. Very good things are going to come out of Philly. I can agree with you. They were one of the most impressive teams, but it's really hard to take away the most impressive team that is in the Super Bowl right now, man. Cincinnati. Again, they turned around 20-plus years of nonsense in the season. You know,
They did.
I was talking about this off air with a coworker of mine. Up until this year, now that Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase are on the Bengals, who would you relate the Bengals to? If you hear the Bengals, what's the first name that comes to your mind?
Browns.
No, player.
Oh, player?
Yeah, what's the first player that comes to mind?
Actively on the team?
Just comes to mind off the top of your head.
Vonta's perfect.
You don't want your name. You don't want your franchise wrapped around that name. You want to know the name that comes up for me? Pac-Man Jones. Okay. Now, you ask someone, Joe Burrow.
Yep.
That's 20 plus years of nonsense out the window now. I don't remember you guys at all. I think of Joe Burrow. I think of Jamar Chase. I think of Joe Mixon. So you want to talk about impressive? You just clean slated an entire reputation and made it one of the best reputations you could possibly have.
Yeah, honestly, I will agree with you. Cincinnati has one of the impressive years this year because they're just no one really expected them to be in the Super Bowl. You told anyone in November, like Cincinnati Bengals going to be in the Super Bowl, they'd be like, "The fuck's wrong with you?"
Literally, they would be like, "What is wrong with you?" There was an episode of First Take that happened. I watched it this morning. I forgot who his name is. He was actually bantering at Stephen A. Smith because he called it in August that as of today, that day, the Bengals looked like a Super Bowl team. And just like you said, Stephen A. Smith on air in more words than one kind of said, "You're fucking crazy." He was like, "What are you talking about? I don't understand." And the gentleman who had referenced it said, "Give them the Steelers defense, they will win a Super Bowl."
Mm-hmm.
But as they stand, they are Super Bowl contenders, and that was in August. So there was one person who believed in them throughout the entire year.
And also all the people of Cincinnati.
They bought into it. They had, that's their football team in Ohio. Cleveland, go away. That's what Joe Burrow took the entire state of Ohio and, just turned it on its head and was like, "Don't worry about Cleveland. We'll take it. We'll take it from here."
I know the people from Ohio love Ohio. First person I'm thinking of is my mom. Hi, Mom. And we're talking about Ohio in the Super Bowl. No, she's
Right.
like, "What?" Like,
What are you talking?
The Bengals?
Yeah, of any team, it's the fucking Bengals.
That's the thing is though, is like the Bengals have built through the draft very well in the past couple years, and especially where it's like you get the quarterback and you get him his
favorite piece,
his favorite wide receiver, and they have instant chemistry. And honestly, I was very impressed with Jamar Chase, especially how in the preseason he had a lot of drops, and so there were a lot of projections that he wouldn't perform as well as he did this year, and he has performed phenomenal this year as a true number one receiver. And it's just crazy to think that he's just a rookie.
The two of them together, man, it's really disgusting. But there's also another player that is from that LSU championship team. It's Sheldon on the defense, the defensive tackle.
Oh, Tyler Sheldon.
Tyler Sheldon. He's a defensive tackle on the Bengals as well. They drafted him the same year as Jamar Chase. He's a rookie too. I don't know his stats, but to have three players from a championship college team on the same team now playing for another championship together, that's cohesiveness that you won't find. So the Bengals in their drafting core, when it comes to that, that's something that we haven't seen. They're looking for outright chemistry, not a bunch of people, because you got to remember the rivalries in college run strong.
Oh, yeah.
So let's say you play for Ohio State and I play for Alabama.
Mm-hmm.
We get drafted to the same team. You think we're going to like each other off the jump?
Probably not.
We're really not going to like each other. So we're going to respect each other for what we are. We're professionals. We're partners. We work together. But there won't be a chemistry for quite some time.
Mm-hmm.
But you get people who have won a championship together at the highest level before being drafted.
Mm-hmm.
Look at what you're seeing. You're looking at true magic happen.
You're looking at a championship caliber team.
You're looking at a championship. Because people are coming in with the championship mentality together. They know what it takes to win together, so they're going to emulate that throughout the rest of the team, and everyone bought into it. Joe Mixon bought into it. He had a great, great year. I remember in the beginning of the season, no one really heard about Joe Mixon, but come week 4, week 5, everyone was talking about Joe Mixon. Mm-hmm. Everyone wanted a piece of Joe Mixon. So,
yeah. Bengals, again, best team in the AFC right now. It's hard to say otherwise. So, but with that being said, as the most impressive team this year, who would you consider the most disappointing team this year?
Most disappointing team.
Because honestly, for me,
mm-hmm.
The Seahawks. There's a few teams, but the Seahawks come to mind, and I say this because think about it. They won their division last year at 12-4. They lost to the Rams. The Rams were a better team, but the Seahawks never tried to get better. They just tried to remain the same and just rely on Russell Wilson. And when Russell Wilson ultimately got hurt, they fell out of contention so hard that people just forgot them immediately. Like people forget that they had the Seahawks. I mean, on the Detroit, they put up 50 points, but it's like, yeah, but that was like the second to last game of the year. Russell Wilson was back, but it doesn't matter. It's Detroit. So like Seattle, since they relied too much on Russell Wilson and never cared to really get better as a team and draft well and get the players that they need in free agency, it really brought them out of contention, out of playoff contention, and you just saw 3 out of the 4 other teams in that the 3 other teams in that division make it to the playoffs.
Yeah, and you had to sit in the back. You know, they were definitely one of the more disappointing teams. But honestly, I feel like one of the most disappointing seasons really comes from that same division in Arizona. You know me, I was riding hot on Arizona. They were the first team in the league for quite some time.
They were.
Then they lost 7 straight. They lost their final 6 games, lost their playoff game. Now they're home doing nothing. They went from first seed to a wild card spot. That's a shame. That's unacceptable. You know, of course there were drop-offs throughout the year. People got hurt, people got sick, what have you. You guys got to play better throughout the entirety of the season. We've been saying it all year. This is a year of attrition because it's another week longer. It is the longest season ever, and they came out very fast and heavy-handed. But as the season went on, you saw that they were running out of gas, and teams were picking into their reserve tanks, and they don't have a reserve tank in Arizona.
No.
Especially after DeAndre Hopkins got hurt. And then J.J. Watt got hurt.
And Kyler Murray.
And Kyler Murray got hurt twice. He came back after those injuries, but even still, you guys started going out, you guys had no depth. You have no depth in receiver, you have no depth in quarterback, you really don't have depth in a secondary edge rush. And even once J.J. Watt came back, he had a pretty disappointing return. He wasn't really effective. He came back for that playoff game, but he didn't really do much. He had 3 tackles the entire game.
Also Chandler Jones as well.
Chandler Jones got hurt. So very disappointing. Unfortunate circumstances led to it, but I feel like the overall main disappointment comes from Arizona for me. Or the Chargers. Chargers were very disappointing as well.
The Chargers were very disappointing because I wanted to see them in the playoffs, and I think a lot of people kind of thought that they would make the playoffs. But that game against the Raiders, that winner-take-all game, was crucial. But honestly, I want to flip it to another team in the AFC, and one specific game, the last game of the season for the Colts, where you had to beat the Jacksonville Jaguars, and you're in the playoffs. You lost to the Jacksonville Jaguars and missed the playoffs completely. And there were people saying, and us included, that the Colts, they're a pretty nasty team.
They're not the team you want to play in the playoffs.
They're not the team that you want to play because they have a solid defense. We'll see how that's going to be because their defensive coordinator, Eric Eberflus, is now the head coach of the Chicago Bears.
Wait.
Eric Eberflus.
Eberflus?
Eberflus.
Oh, my God.
So we'll see how that defense holds up in the offseason. But Carson Wentz, he's just one of those quarterbacks where he's good, but he's not good enough to win you a game. And it's like the fact that you had your most disappointing game, the last game, which was so crucial and determined your entire season, and it was all for naught. And I felt that it could have been something if they made the playoffs. Maybe they could have had an upset or something in the wild card round, depending on their matchup. It would have been nice to see them in that game, but
Yeah,
They just had that disappointing game.
I have to agree as well that the Colts really were disappointing. Everyone wanted to see a postseason Jonathan Taylor.
Oh, 100%.
Everyone wanted to see it, but looking at it, it wouldn't be enough. Just with how strong the AFC playoff bracket was this year, if they were to make it, they wouldn't make it past wildcard weekend. With just how strong the teams are.
Because the AFC runs deep.
AFC was deadlocked up until the final game. It took Jacksonville to get the Colts out. Which doesn't say much, but Jacksonville has been, again, they were upsetting teams all year because they had nothing to lose. Everyone had everything to game. It was a must-win game for them, and they were like, fuck it. Let's go take it on them. Let's go take it. So, a lot of teams really were disappointing this year, man.
If I'm going to be honest, I was very disappointed in the Ravens this year. And I say that because we were lucky to win the games that we did, so close as they were. And then just when Lamar got hurt, we just could not, we still competed in games, but we could have won a lot more games. Every game that we won by close margins, and we lost by close margins. And it really comes down to also the depth as well. Granted, the Ravens got hit by a big injury bug throughout the entire season. Even before the season, during the season, it was very rough for the Ravens. But the fact that they we were 8-3 at one point, and then we lost 6 straight games.
Yep.
And it was for that I felt that was a very disappointing season.
Yeah, that's a disappointment in itself. You and I, throughout this season, I was telling you, you guys got to start not playing down to your opponents, and you got to start getting away from people because those margins are getting closer and closer.
Yep.
And then before you knew it, you guys were losing by close margins. Then you started losing by a little bit bigger than close margins. But again, it has to come down to attrition and depth when it comes to injuries and stuff like that. It also doesn't help that Lamar Jackson got sick 4 times with COVID.
Yeah, he was sick, but then once he got hurt, then it didn't matter
at that point.
At that point, so he was dealing with both, and it was just a bad way to end the season.
But again, with your heaviest hits were in the offseason, losing your entire running core.
Yeah,
was the heaviest hit you guys could possibly take,
especially being the number 1 rushing team 2 years in a row up to the season.
So come next season, it's going to be interesting to see where your run game lies, standing next to Philly now.
Yep,
because now they're the number 1 rushing team, and that was really without a star running back. That was more Jalen Hurts than anyone.
Jalen Hurts and Miles Sanders is the dominant rushers.
And I like Miles Sanders, but
like him
he's
too.
Someone who needs another running back.
Mm-hmm.
So if they go into the draft and pick up a running back, maybe, you and I were talking off air that maybe when they go into the draft, they should pick up a lineman and someone on defense. If they get another running back to go with Miles Sanders that can also help with play action running and read options and stuff like that, maybe go, hear me out now, a true fullback.
Who are you thinking?
I would have to look to see if there are any.
Oh, but you're talking about a fullback in the draft.
Draft a true fullback.
See, I think that would really benefit them to really accentuate their running game, and I like that. But we'll keep a more eye on the draft once it gets a little closer. But I do want to see Philly in that run game develop a little bit more, and I do want to see the Ravens' run game just return to form and just have Gus Edwards and J.K. Dobbins just come right back.
Yeah, don't sell yourselves short for next season.
No, I'm pretty confident going into next year, but we'll talk more about that later on.
All right.
So with that being said, those are the teams that we find most impressive and disappointing. But let me ask you this, Chris Palmer. What do you think was the game of the year this year? If you had to sit down and think about it, what was the most impressive game? Honestly, for me, just in the playoffs, was the Kansas City-Buffalo game.
Well, for
playoffs, that's for me. But for the regular season, I have 2 games.
God.
I have the Green Bay Packers and the Arizona Cardinals, that Thursday night game. Not because it wasn't really a shootout, but it was everything was within the numbers, but every play seemed crucial and big and just opportunistic, and it ended off on something very memorable where just AJ Green just had that mental lapse and just didn't catch it, and but it was. I like that game a lot, but I will also say another game for me that I would consider game of the year is probably the last game of the regular season with that the Vegas Raiders and the Chargers game. That shootout between Justin Herbert and Derek Carr, going to overtime and ending off on a walk-off field goal.
Yeah,
that
was a great game.
Honestly, for me, we knew that Justin Herbert was going to be great, and him and Tom Brady were the only quarterbacks this year that threw for over 5,000 yards. Mm-hmm. Justin Herbert, his second year, threw for 5,000 yards. Unbelievable to think about.
That make sense, right?
It's just unbelievable to think about. But one thing that I was just impressed with was just Derek Carr dealing with so much bullshit this year for the Raiders.
So much adversity.
There was so much off-season, off-field shit that I felt so bad for him. But he was the rock for that Raiders team, and for him to cap it off the last game of the year against a very respectful division rival and play your best game and lead your team to the playoffs despite the entire season that you had, I got to tip my hat off to that game.
Yeah, I can agree with, but the thing is, we've seen it happen once before with the Raiders too this season. Let's not forget that Raiders-Ravens game.
That was a great game too.
When I think of game of the year, honestly, that's the only spot my mind goes. I loved that Chargers-Raiders game. Don't get me wrong. It was an incredible, incredible game. But I was thinking game of the year, and offhand, that was the only game that came to mind.
Really?
Was that Raiders-Ravens game. Dude, that game was on a different level. Again, it was two quarterbacks that were young, hot, and ready to go. Coming in at their healthiest. The team was at their healthiest. It was before all the adversity in Vegas had happened.
Mm-hmm.
So,
but the Ravens running back core did have that injury 2 weeks before that game.
Correct. I understand that. But you guys had already had a game under your belt. And so you guys were already moving. What?
What do you mean a game under our belt? Oh,
it was week 2. So you guys already had.
It was week 1.
Was it? Wow, you're right. So you guys were able to practice without your running team.
Yeah, so we weren't at our healthiest, but it was still
the healthiest you're gonna be for the season because you already had the season enders.
Right.
That's really what I mean.
Okay.
So that in itself, with your guys' detriment, taking it to overtime, unbelievable game. But going now to the playoffs, that Kansas City Buffalo Bills game could possibly go down as one of the greatest games of all time. Not even just game of the year. It could be one of the greatest games of all time.
Oh, my God. It was absolutely incredible.
Because we watched a shift in how the game of football was played. We watched the third evolution of football happen in that game. And a lot of people really won't understand what they were watching because of just how many points were scored.
Mm-hmm.
But if you sit down and you watch the technical ability between Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes, it's something that we have never and probably will never see again.
Well, honestly, we're going to see more of it years to come, that matchup, because
the matchup, I'm talking about the talent.
The talent is just on another level. The fact that
it's going to be them two and everyone else.
And to think both teams are championship caliber teams.
Yes.
Like they are just Super Bowl bound teams that will be fighting in the playoffs for years to come. And to think they played last year in the conference title, they played this year. Don't be surprised if we see them next year in the playoffs, but maybe in Buffalo.
You see,
we'll see.
That would be an interesting matchup in Buffalo. To think that the fate between those two teams rests on a coin flip, literally.
Because you know that they're just going to score.
They're going to score, and it showed this past season. It's unfortunate that Buffalo just lost the coin toss, and it's actually coming into question that they could possibly change the overtime rule. That
they could. I doubt they will.
I feel like they should give the team one chance. You should get a rebuttal.
If you don't score a touchdown.
No, even if you get a touchdown, you should get a rebuttal. I feel like you should get a rebuttal.
I don't know. We could say that for another time, but I don't know. I don't really feel that they should change it, but man, just thinking about that whole game, like there were just so many highlights in that game, like just throughout, where both teams were playing at their absolute best, and it was just incredible to see. Like you close your eyes and you just see so many moving parts. You see Tyreek going up the hill. You see a no-name Gabriel Davis with 4 touchdowns, and Patrick Mahomes doing his thing against the number 1 defense in the league.
Right. You get Stephon Diggs getting completely locked out all game.
And so it made for an incredible game to watch. And they do play each other next year. So in the regular season,
that's a rivalry for years to come, mate. And that's the fact that those two were compared to the Brady Manning rivalry. I love it.
I love it too.
I love it.
I will say this though. Don't be surprised if Buffalo is the favorite to win it all next year, because they very well could. We'll see. We'll talk more in the offseason about them. But,
that's a conversation.
But they have a great team right now, and
they do have a great team.
So it's going to be interesting to see them going forward.
Mm-hmm.
But any other games that you would consider game of the year?
I would have to look back. There was a bunch of really, really exciting games.
If I'm going to be a little biased, I will say that Ravens-Colts game was very impressive. That Monday night game where Lamar had an 80% completion on over 400 yards that game. And he led a comeback. I think it was like from 18 points or so, or 17 points. It was a crazy, 20 something. I don't know. It was one of those crazy comebacks that I've never seen him pull off a comeback like that before. I've seen him pull off like a 10 or a 14 point comeback. That's not too bad, but like a triple possession comeback in order to win the game. Absolutely incredible.
Now I got a question for you. What are some of your expectations for some teams for next year?
Expectations?
Like going into the draft potentially, and or like just progress. Like which teams do you want to see progress come from?
Well, of course the Ravens, because I do want to see the Ravens succeed there. But I also do want to see the Steelers too. I'm very interested to see Mike Tomlin and how his vision for the new Steelers, because let's be honest though, the defense is good, but it's not going to hold for long. But you have a young offense. You have a great deep wide receiving core, as well as a stud rookie running back who is just great for years to come. Now, who's going to be the face of it? Who's going to be the one making the tough decisions for you going forward? So I'm interested to see the progress that the Steelers are going to make, but I feel I would trust Mike Tomlin in that scenario. But what are your thoughts on that?
Well, when it comes to Pittsburgh and where we're headed, I read something on the Steelers website, I think either yesterday or the day before, that our quarterback coach went to go talk to Mr. Pickett from Pittsburgh. So the fact that we're like in the recruiting process of looking for a new quarterback, and of all people, going after Pickett would be the play. He has expressed his emotion on wanting to play for Pittsburgh. He's in Pittsburgh College. I believe he lives in Pittsburgh, so he would be another hometown hero like James Conner. All respect to James Conner. But yeah, we have a very tough little running back, Najee Harris. Our drafting for receiver is probably some of the best in the league, and that's unbiased. We have one of the deepest receiving drafting personnel I have ever seen. Our weakest receiver right now is Ray McLeod, and he's on our kick return. And he is wicked fast.
Well, you have Chase Claypool,
Deontay Johnson,
Juju
Smith-Schuster,
Nate Washington, Ray McLeod,
James Washington.
And then tight end, you have Freiermuth.
We also have isn't a second tight end that we have as well.
I know who you're talking about. I forget his name.
I can't think of his name off the top of my head either. But we have a second tight end. Again,
Don't forget about my man Benny Snell.
Benny Snell is a good backup. He's a good backup. But Najee Harris will absolutely be the workhorse, and it shows. Our issue was the age on offense. We had 7 rookie starters this year. 7. Out of the entire offensive core, 7 of them were rookies.
Ooh.
Out of the 7, 4 of them were linemen.
Yeah.
So to do that, and we still have a running back at over 1,000 yards rushing, that has a lot of positivity there.
Mm-hmm.
1, for the stud that is the running back, and 2, for what's going to happen 5 years down the line when each and every one of them is now in the league for longer than 5 years.
Yeah.
And if they all stay together as a unit, that's an offensive line I don't want to mess with.
Yeah, so I do want to see the progression of that offensive line too, and that running game develop, because that'll open up so much more avenues for the Steelers,
Yes.
and they'll still be in contention even while changing their identity.
Right. And while also keeping the mentality of we are the defensive team. You know, that defense, like you said, it's not going to stay together for long, but again, as we draft very strong defensively. You know, some pieces need longer development than others, i.e. Devin Bush. He is taking a little longer to develop than liked, but he is coming off of an injury. You know, T.J. Watt came out like a bat out of hell. Cam Hayward, he came out like a monster.
Wormley.
I love Wormley. Hargrave, great. You know, we have a lot of good pieces. Minka Fitz coming over from Miami, one of the best midseason trades we could have ever made. Artie Burns, great veteran to have. We need a second piece at safety. We need probably one more linebacker, depending on how Devin Bush starts to develop in the zone reads and stuff like that. Defensively, we're always going to be strong. I trust the Roonies to be able to draft strong defensively. It's on the offense that kind of concerns me because it seems like they mostly aim at receiver.
Mm-hmm.
But that was also because of 18 years of Ben Roethlisberger.
Yeah.
When you have an all-time quarterback, you don't really have to look anywhere else except let me get him weapons.
Yeah.
Now we have all the weapons, but we have no target thrower.
Yeah.
So looking at Pickett, I think it's going to be a very, very promising draft for us if we can manage to get him.
Mm-hmm.
So, but for me, another team that I really want to see progress, I want to see Jacksonville progress.
Jacksonville.
I want to see Jacksonville. I have no inclination to see that they're going to do well. I like Trevor Lawrence as an athlete. You know,
See, I'm surprised.
I've watched him in college. I want to see him do well, but he's not going to. I don't think he's going to progress in Jacksonville. I think I said it when he got drafted. These should be his 3 years to fill his stock and go to a better team. You know,
yeah,
all the while trying to stay healthy.
Mm-hmm.
He stays healthy and he does what he needs to do for 3 years. That contract is up. He's a free agent. He's going to end up on a contending team.
We'll see. I do think, despite everything that Jacksonville has faced this year, that Trevor Lawrence did show some bright spots.
That's what I mean.
And I would like to see him continue and progress and be the quarterback to lead a team, even if it is Jacksonville. So, but I would like to just see him be a good quarterback no matter what team he's on. And I think for the city of Jacksonville, he's the one that they can definitely wrap their arms around and be like, okay, look, you are our guy.
Well, if that's going to be the thing, then they really have to invest in a lot of things, and because they have a lot of trouble in Jacksonville right now.
Jacksonville is one of those teams where they're going to be drafting, but slower. They're going to be at a much slower pace. It's going to take them a couple years to really form what they want. They had their most successful year in 2018 when they were a defensive oriented team. Since then, they basically cleaned house on defense, and now it's a lot of young guys, but we saw a few of them come up. And I would say Josh Allen, the linebacker,
Josh Allen,
definitely came up this year as a defensive leader. So that's good to see. But you're right though. I would like to see what happens with Jacksonville and Trevor Lawrence, and if he doesn't stay with Jacksonville, who takes him in a couple years' time. So that's interesting to think about.
A couple years, looking that far into the future is hard, especially with the power shift that's coming into the league, and it's going to come very forcefully with the absence of Tom Brady now. Again, this year's drafting class in quarterback isn't that strong. There's a couple here and there, but next year, it's strong again. So, best hope for Trevor Lawrence's sake that there isn't someone who could be the next Trevor Lawrence for some rebuilding team.
Mm-hmm.
As of right now, there are teams that need quarterback. In 3 years' time, there may not be a team that needs a quarterback, and
That's
you
true.
may be stuck in Jacksonville, and that would be unfortunate for the longevity of his career.
Yeah, I think again, there's a very big disconnect between owner and trusting in their coaching staff, and I think the ownership really put their trust in the wrong person in Urban Meyer, and if they're able to get Byron Leftwich and secure him as their head coach, or anyone who is a leader of men for Jacksonville, I think if they put their trust in him and trust the vision, that they have for the team going forward, we can see a successful Jacksonville, because that Titans team, like, they're good, but they're very flawed. They can be had. The Colts team is a good team, but they're starting to fall apart a little bit. And the Texans, they're going to be cleaning house within this next offseason. So that division is going to be, if they're able to time it right, they can secure a spot within a power vacuum. But I do want to say there's a division that I actually want to watch the progression of, and that's the power vacuum of the NFC South now.
You were mentioning that earlier.
Okay, so Tom Brady is done from the Bucs. The Bucs are not going to be a strong contending team, because without him, they went 7-9 with Jameis Winston the year prior to them winning the Super Bowl.
Right.
So they're a good team, but again, a flawed team. Carolina, Matt Rule's been trying to get to make the Panthers contenders, but they're honestly a quarterback shy. Their quarterback is their weakest position at this point, and they do need to pick up someone that can get them there. They're, again, a defensive-oriented team. Great. They have great young defensive players, and a good receiving core on offense. They're able to balance it. Obviously, Christian McCaffrey, he's good when he's on the field, but he's never on the field that much. You need a quarterback, and Sam Darnold is not the guy. For Atlanta, they're still going to ride with Matt Ryan until the wheels fall off.
Wheels fall off.
So,
man.
Does Matt Ryan say, "Hey, look, this is a weak division now. Maybe I can crawl up to the top"? Or what's going to happen with the Saints, because Sean Payton is
stepping away.
And
they need a quarterback too.
And they need a quarterback too. So there's going to be a massive power vacuum in the NFC South, and I'm very interested to see what team is able to capitalize on that.
Yeah, that's going to be an interesting power sweep to watch. I want to see what Bruce Arians does. I want to see which of those teams really looks into, okay, how do we fix our quarterback problem? Because that entire division has quarterback issues.
Oh, yeah.
So if there was any of those teams that need a quarterback in the worst way, personally, I feel like it's the Saints. And of course, the Saints need a coach. But I feel like the team that is most prepared to win right now, energy-wise, the whole thing is New Orleans. They have a very good energy to win. They have a good winning mentality. Carolina's been beat up for years. They're strong, but they're beat up. Tampa, they had one good season because the greatest of all time decided to come through.
Yeah.
Other than that, it's been a history of garbage since the early 2000s. So I like the Saints to really, and they're very smart. They're a very smart franchise. They know their issues. I'm sure they saw it, and they were talking to Sean Payton and telling him, look, we have issues and they're not being fixed. And that's why he took it upon himself to step away, because they weren't probably necessarily pointing the finger, but they were probably shining the light, and they were like, you need to get it together. Because without Drew Brees, you are not the same.
And he didn't want to stick around because, they're also well over the cap. So it's like he would be forced to build his team through the draft, and that's going to really take them out of contention. Honestly, you're right. All teams really have quarterback issues. I want to see what Atlanta does. I want to see, because
you hold so much faith for Atlanta. I don't understand. I
feel bad for them, but
pity Matt Ryan.
No, but I will say this though. Arthur Smith as their head coach. I like him. Even though
Okay.
it wasn't a really strong year for them. I think they're in position where it's like, look, you probably have the best quarterback left in the division at this point. That's not saying much, but Matt Ryan's he's still kicking it. He's still good. He's not he's not in his prime. He's not 2018 Matt Ryan, but I don't know. I still have a little faith in him. Maybe I'm blind. Maybe I'm blinded by the birds.
You have the same faith in him that you put in Detroit this past year.
I put too much stock in Detroit
You
this
put
year.
too much stock in Atlanta too, and I'm going to tell you that outright as a friend.
I know.
You put way too much stock in Matt Ryan.
I do like Matt Ryan. I will say this.
You have a soft spot for Matt Ryan, and I respect it to an extent. It's too much, but I respect it.
But we'll see who makes their way and takes that division going forward. So I'm interested to see what happens there.
Yeah, that's going to be interesting to see.
So I think that about wraps it up.
Wait, I have one last thing for you,
Go
Chris
ahead.
Palma. So I was able to do counts
Oh boy, here
all
we go.
the picks that we made this year and give you our record for this
the
year.
year.
Are you ready for it?
Not really.
Okay.
Really, not really.
Okay, I want to what do you think it is?
I would just like to be above 500 personally.
Okay. So, I can say for a fact that we are above 500.
The both of us.
Yes.
Okay.
So, I will give you your record, okay?
Okay.
So, you are 153 correct games picked to 90 incorrect games picked and then one tie.
Okay.
I had 163 80 games and one tie.
Okay.
So you picked about 62 games, 62% correct, and myself 66, which is
I'll take it.
which is honestly, I'm actually kind of impressed
I'm
with
impressed
it.
with both of us. That's actually really. I don't mind that at all.
You know what? We're definitely above. There were a lot of games where we definitely agreed with, and for myself in particular, I picked a lot of games in the beginning of it. But come mid-season, there was a lot of stuff that was just kind of like I did not expect. I did not expect the Chiefs to struggle. I did not expect to be Philly or Cincinnati to be good. And they were teams. Detroit, obviously, we expected Detroit. I put too much stock in Detroit.
I don't understand where you went with Detroit. I will
Never understand where you went with Detroit.
But nevertheless, I'm kind of happy for this. And you know what? I do want to say. I want to say thank you to everyone watching because honestly, I felt that in doing this, we became not only better fans, but better fans of the game of football, and just being more attentive and just like looking for all the details. And I got to say thank you to everyone because this was such a rewarding experience to just be here, sitting here, and just with you, my son,
Yeah.
talking football.
Truly, this was an incredible experience. We will be here next year for season 2. We have a bunch of little tricks coming up.
We have some great ideas, and we are excited to do it with
have
you
a couple
guys.
of surprises coming in for next year. We've got some things coming. So there you have it. There was our full season. We're getting ready. Tune in next week for our Super Bowl. It's going to be 1 hour long of just talking the Super Bowl, team v team. The board is set. One-on-one, that's it. Last game of the year is a week away. 2 weeks away.
Be sure to tune in to our Super Bowl special, baby. Oh, I'm excited. I'm so excited
for that. So please leave a like, a comment, subscribe to our page. We will be here next week to talk. We will be here next season. Hope to see you guys around. Thank you guys.